Fáilte everyone, you are very welcome to another edition of Mind Your Precious Self. And this topic is very dear to my heart. And I think it's a particularly good time of year to be talking about bountiful abundance. It's Misha, Dr. Karen Ward, and I am coming to you from the island of Ireland, a small island off the west coast of Europe, which knows a lot about abundance. Because, as many of you know, in our history, we had a devastating famine where half our population either died or emigrated. So as you can imagine, as a people, as an indigenous people, the concept of bounty and abundance is very close to our hearts. And many of us have had to work very hard to bring a sense of what that means into our lives as much as we can. Bounty is an interesting word, as indeed is abundance. And I'd like to talk to you about the idea of what it is, how we might regard our past abundance, and this would come in with our lineage and our ancestry, abundance we might have today, and abundance that doesn't mean monetary wealth, but can do. However, most importantly, I would like to talk to you about the idea of calling in future abundance. Now, at the risk of sounding a little bit airy-fairy, there are many of us who are conscious of manifestation, and we're conscious of the wonderful book, The Secret, or it was made into a film. The idea of calling in what we need in life. Some of you, perhaps like myself, have tried this out and realized actually it does work. But there might be other of you who are thinking, oh, I'm not really sure about that. Can it work? Does it work? Well, the answer is yes. However, there are very key criteria, shall we say, to putting this into practice. So let's go back to the beginning. Abundance comes in many different forms. And yes, there is the monetary aspect to it. Do we have money in the bank? Do we have enough to have a roof over our head, to own a roof over our head if we're lucky enough to be able to do so, to be able to pay the rent, to have food on the table? And these come into what are called Abraham Maslow, very much one of the forefathers of psychotherapy. But he created this pyramid, and at the bottom are basic human needs: food, a roof over our heads, safety, security. And of course, the top of the pyramid, we have all of the luxuries that we might consider: the ability to go on holidays, to buy nice clothes, to be able to go to theatre, culture, arts. You get the idea. But abundance means so much more than that. We have abundance of love in our lives, and that might be a partner, a lover, our parents, our siblings, our own children, friends, family, our pets. So an abundance of love, very, very important in life. And I'm sure you will agree that no amount of money can buy that. It's something that's very precious. But also abundance comes into what we might consider our talents and skills. Sometimes you might hear people say, oh my gosh, she's an abundance of abilities or skills, or he's very brainy. In other words, other people seem to have the bounty of smarts, as you might say. So they have the ability to go out and do things in the world. However, we have to remember that our school systems are very much geared towards learning by rote and the the ability to calculate, if it's mathematic or science based, or if it's maybe writing and arts, the good with languages, you get the idea. However, there are schools nowadays that really focus, particularly the Steiner schools and the Maria Montessori schools, they focus on each child's ability to perhaps bring the others together, a beautiful smile, a loving nature. So in other words, we're looking at other ways of being an abundant person, and that we as humans are beginning to rate these very important ways of being. And I think you'll probably agree that over the last couple of years, we've really seen the importance of kindness, of community, of pulling together as a tribe, if you will, be that our family or our neighborhood or our country. And then if we take abundance a little bit wider, we think in terms of opportunities. You might have the roof over your head. You might have whatever it takes to fulfill a certain job. You might have the love of your family. But there could be an absence of excitement, of passion, of enthusiasm. It might seem like everybody else is going on fabulous holidays, or they have wonderful hobbies or interests, scintillating conversations, and somehow I'm missing out on that. And we have to remember that this type of abundance takes time and energy. In other words, it doesn't just happen overnight. There has to be an investment, if you will. That's a good word to use in conjunction with abundance. But there has to be an investment of seeking the type of people who are perhaps shakers and movers in the arts world, or interested in the subjects that are passionate with you. But instead of thinking about them or reading about them in your own home, that you get the opportunity to go out into the world and seek those people to make the connection. I hope I've given you an idea of how wide abundance is. And of course, we might think of it in terms of body, mind, and spirit. So body-wise, have we an abundance of health? Mind-wise, have we the ability to think outside the box? And then spiritual-wise, do we nurture our souls? Do we have that sense of connection that really sustains us, that lets our Celtic souls sing, if you will? Very important. And now that we've looked at what abundance is and the bountifulness of it, let's think for a moment about past abundance in our lives. So we might think, oh yes, I had an idyllic childhood, it was wonderful. Or, oh my gosh, such amazing opportunities in maybe if you studied, or maybe if you did an apprenticeship, or perhaps in your first job. Maybe the crowd that you ran with at school were just fantastic. And you might look back to your family history, your lineage, if you will, and think, well, my people were from good stock. We were musicians. We came from Clare, a very rich tradition in music. We were singers. My people always had nurses or midwives or carers. We were very hands-on healers, perhaps herbalists. You get the idea. And that's wonderful to have that appreciation in the past. But if we look at the present, what is your abundance like at the moment? And of course, we could be in a really good phase in our lives where you think, oh yes, I've completed that project, really was nurturing. My children have grown up, they're doing really well. I'm so happy for them. My relationship is good. My beloved pet is such a nurturing presence in my life, or not. It could be that maybe your children are small and they're keeping you up at night, or perhaps your teenagers are a little bit feisty, too feisty. Maybe you're in between jobs, or whatever it might be. And this is what brings me to the most important part of Bountiful Abundance in this edition of Mind Your Precious Self. How can we manifest for the future? Well, it's not as difficult as you think. However, there are very, very key aspects to it. And if we look back into the mists of time, we will notice that there have always been people who seem to have that ability to call in abundance. And they might have been from different countries, different ethnicities, different genders. They might have had spiritual beliefs or not. But there's a common denominator to all of them. And that is the focused ability to believe that they are worthy of abundance. Now, let me say that again because it's really important. The focused ability to believe that they are worthy of abundance. There's a wonderful story that I'm going to share with you, and it said volumes for me when I first heard it. And it goes something like this. You see somebody else with something, and maybe there's a little bit of envy or jealousy. And perhaps it stops with there and you get bitter and twisted. Or you flip the envy and jealousy to think, well, if she can have that, why not me? So then you begin to think, what do I have to do to get what that person has? Now, it could be a skill, it could be a job, it could be whatever. And then you put it out to the universe, to God, Goddess, Spirit, whatever you believe in. And you say, please let me have whatever. Sounds easy? So far, so good. But then being human, we do the old, well, do I really want that job? I mean, gosh, would I be able for it? Or you might think, maybe that course is a bit hard. Maybe I should pick something easier. Or is that house a little bit big? How would I clean it? So in other words, in the first step, you're sending out to the universe, we'll call it, a clear message. This is what I want. And in the second, you're beginning to doubt yourself and you're saying, the house might be a bit big, the job might be a bit hard, the course might be a bit difficult. So if you can imagine, the energy that's going out there is saying, this is what I want. And the second message is, oh no, I don't want it. And if you can imagine the universe, spirit, God, goddess, whatever force of nature, that transpersonal element going, well, listen, do you want it or do you not want it? And how many times do we do this? In other words, we scupper our dreams. It's a little bit like saying, oh, I would love to win the lottery. Have you bought a ticket? Maybe not. How are you possibly going to win the lottery if you haven't bought a ticket? So it is exactly the same with the principle of manifesting abundance. We've got to invest focus, time, and energy and be rock solid on what we want. Now, that's all very well and good, but you might think, well, I think I want it, but if I've never had it, how will I know? And you've probably heard this wonderful term, in the best possible way for the highest possible good. I really like this. It's a great saying. In other words, if this job, if this house, if this whatever it is for me, then it will come to pass because I'm focused and I believe in it. But if there is something alternative that is even better, then I am open to receiving that. Does that make sense? In other words, my intention is to manifest a home in this place in the best possible way for the highest possible good. And then perhaps that house falls through and around the corner is an even better one with a beautiful sunny kitchen or a gorgeous garden or fabulous neighbours, and you think, yeah, this is great. Rather than going for the first house and then thinking, oh, maybe it's a bit pricey, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And in other words, shutting off the ability to manifest the bountiful abundance. Now, what I would recommend you do is start small. In other words, flex your manifestation of abundance muscles with something quite small. Let me give you an example. In fact, this is quite a good example. I am Irish, I'm from Dublin, and from the time I was 4 to the time I was 17, I learnt Irish at school, Irish Gaelic. But in the way it was taught, and perhaps the way I am, I'd have a cúpla focal, but I'm not a Gaeilgeoir. I basically cannot speak fluent Irish. And it's something that I have yearned for a long time. So I've decided that I'm not going to turn 60 until I can speak fluent Irish. Now I have to say, I have to get my act together because I'm getting quite close. So I did Duolingo, check. I did some classes in the Irish school in Dublin. They have quite a few of them, check. And I've put it out there. I need help. I want to learn to speak Irish and I'm trying to figure out how. And lo and behold, a wonderful group of people that I really rate, visionary people, have decided to put together a hedge school, if you will, for people to be able to speak Irish in subjects that they're passionate about and with a very good teacher. And I'm thinking, this is amazing. This is exactly what I dreamed of. And I've just signed up for it. And part of me is thinking, oh yeah, do you remember I thought about that a couple of months ago or a year ago? In other words, there was a sense of divine timing with calling in what I wanted. At the moment, I am blessed and a little bit busy. I am writing 2 books. The Moon Manad Diary Journal, some of you know and love, and also a very book close to my heart, Goddesses of Ireland, Ancient Wisdom for Modern Women. But both of them happened to coincide at the same time. So I called in the inspiration to write, and I wanted to write, but I didn't specify one at a time. So both of them, boom, came together. So I've had a very busy few months. And I'm smiling to myself and thinking, the next time I go for that, I'm going to specify one at a time. Thank you very much. I have a wonderful friend and she is the queen of manifestation. Some of you know her, Patricia Lohan. And Patricia and her husband Ken planned their wedding and their intention for abundance was to have a wonderful sunny day for their wedding. And they got it. But they didn't specify wind. And it was a very sunny, but a very windy day. And she thought, I'm learning something very consciously here of really honing in the intention for what I need. Now, back in the day, this might have been called your goal, especially in business terms. As you know, it's been known as the secret. It's also been called your intention or a prayer. So there's loads of different terms that have been down the ages for this ability to manifest. But the key part I'm stressing again and again is 1, a clear intention, and 2, believing that you are worthy of this, and 3, do not waver from your intention. In other words, believe that you've set it and now it's out there in the world, percolating, if you will, to come to fruition. However, if like me, you want to add in the best possible way for the highest possible good, then that's a lovely little codicil that specifies, well, if there's something better out there, I'm very much open to that. I happened to grow up, as I mentioned, in Dublin in Ireland. So I was brought up, like many, as a Catholic. And I would very much follow a path of nature-based spirituality now. But I do remember a particular biblical saying that always struck me. And I'm paraphrasing now, but the gist of it was something like, even the lilies in the field are looked after. In other words, they get enough sunshine, they get enough water, they get enough minerals from the soil. They don't have to think too much about being lilies. They simply are. They sprout, they grow, they reach the sun, they're beautiful in all their glory, and everything they need is provided for them. They don't worry about it. They don't think, oh, am I worthy to be a lily? They just are. And I remember thinking, that's a really good saying. How if we as humans could have that unshakable belief in our abilities to have all that we need in life? Now, will we have ups and downs? Of course we will. We're human. Will we make mistakes? Yes. But we do have, again, the skill set deep down inside, not just in the head, but in the heart, to recognize, okay, I need to do that better. What was it Einstein said? And Samuel Beckett, fail again, fail better. In other words, rather than risking to do something, it doesn't work out, and then closing down and shutting off, figure out, the next time I'll do this, or, oh, I see where I went wrong that time. Okay. And then you go again and again and again. In other words, we're learning all the time. And perhaps the words that I'm saying here might inspire you to continue what you're already doing. In other words, I always knew I deserved the best, but I never really knew how to do it. Now I do. Or you might think, yes, I've done that. I know what you're talking about, Karen. Or you might go, I used to do that. Actually, I used to do that a lot as a child and in my early teens, because I was so new and fresh to life. I expected, yes, the world would give me what I needed. But then life got in the way and I just lost that ability. And now perhaps it's being rekindled. Now, you might also think, well, is this a little bit naive? And is there almost a naivety to this? Well, in my world, no. Because we're like those lilies in the valley. Why not? And if you think about the good you can do, the kindness you can spread, the unconditional love you can spread, if you have what you need. Now, here's a really important part of this. And any of you who have seen the film of that book, The Secret, I'm thinking of the guy driving around. I think he was in a red Porsche and he had his fantastic condominium overlooking a sea resort. But when you have the ability to manifest your abundance, the monetary things are not, they kind of fade away. So yes, if you happen to have a red Porsche, great, drive around in it, but don't let it define you. And if it disappears tomorrow, so be it. Maybe you can walk or cycle. In other words, the abundance in life is about a bigger heart, a way of being, rather than being defined by those monetary goods. A very good example that some of you might be aware of is in India. I'm going back now a few years, but I'm sure you've seen these pictures, that it was said that people had 3 phases in their lives. So the first phase, they were a student, learning from their mother and father. Maybe it was some sort of apprenticeship. And then the second phase was as a parent, a mother or father. And if you weren't blessed with children, then you'd parent a project or something else. But the third phase was as a renunciant, or the Sadducees is the word I'm thinking of. But literally, after menopause, or the equivalent when a man and the woman would become older, they would give everything away. They would wear their saffron robes, a walking stick, and a little begging bowl. And they would take off, go walkabout, if you will, trusting that they would get a bed for the night, somebody would feed them, and they would have what they needed. Now, you and I might go, oh my gosh, how could you possibly do that? But it was a really important phase in somebody's life to trust the universe, to trust life, to trust in the goodness of others. And I've actually met one of these, a modern version. There's a wonderful friend of mine. I won't say her name now for confidentiality, but a wonderful woman I met from another part of the world who came to Ireland because she was gifted a ticket to come here. And she arrived and she just loved Ireland. She was charmed by the people and the beautiful scenery, everything. And she thought, I'd love to stay, but she didn't particularly have much money. And I watched her she was here for 3 months. And she thought, okay, well, I'll stay in a hostel because it's a cheap way to be. Now, this woman was in her 60s. So she stayed in a hostel, and she would wake up every morning and she'd chat to the people in the hostel, and her money was running out until one day the man who ran the hostel said, I wonder if you could do me a favour. I noticed you're very good with people. We're going to a conference on European hostels, and we're invited to bring speakers, and we'd like somebody to offer to talk about the experience of being in a hostel. So we think maybe you might be interested and you can stay here for free. Well, now I was mesmerised at this. And then a couple of days went on, and she was very interested in our sacred sites in Ireland, Newgrange. She was interested in the Hill of Tara. And one day, randomly, she met somebody and they said, oh, listen, we're going on a tour of these sacred sites in Ireland with a bunch of French people, and we need somebody who speaks French. And she said, oh yeah, I speak French. Oh, would you come with us? Now we'll pay for you. I could go on and on, but she was a great inspiration for me because she was doing a version of what the Indian people were doing, but in a modern context. A lovely woman, a woman of the heart. And then 3 months down the road, she was thinking, oh, I'd really like to go home. And one of her sons rang her and said, hi, Mum, I've come into a few bob. Do you want me to pay for your plane home? So let's recap on how we can bring bountiful abundance into our lives. 1, we need a clear, focused intention. 2, we need to believe we are worthy of that. 3, we need to then let go and let the magic happen. And 4, we need to recognize that this is not a monetary greedy from the head. This is a heart being able to be the very best you can be in the world, but having those hobbies, those interests, those fabulous conversations, the love and all that you need in your life to be the very best that you can be. Mille buíochas, 1,000 thanks. I hope that you have really gleaned something interesting from this talk. But please don't take my word for it. It's very important that you put this into action for yourselves. And I'd be delighted to hear from you. And you never know, I might answer you back, Oscailga. Ha ha!